Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into a design analysis today that's got me really intrigued. We've got a living room sent in by one of our listeners, and it's a whole vibe. Classic architecture meets modern minimalism, and it's all done up in this really striking monochrome palette. Expert speaker, what's your first take when you see a space like this?
It's interesting. The thing that really grabs me is the way they've managed to make these two totally different styles work together. You've got the classic bones of the room, the ornate moldings and all, which, that could easily feel stuffy or dated. But then they bring in these super sleek, modern furniture pieces, and boom, suddenly it's fresh, it's exciting. It's like this really cool dialogue between past and present.
Totally. It's like they took a page from that friend we all have who can somehow rock a vintage find with the newest sneakers and just make it look effortless. And the source was pointing out how important the high ceilings are to that effect. Like, it's giving grand old manner, but make it modern. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You need that breathing room for a concept like this to really sing.
Okay, but can we talk about the color scheme? Or should I say lack thereof? Don't get me wrong. I love a good monochrome moment. Very timeless, very chic. But is this a case of maybe going a little too stark?
You've hit on a really important point because, yes, monochrome is classic for a reason, right? It's like the little black dress of interior design, always stylish, always works. But just like you wouldn't wear a little black dress to, say, a picnic, you have to be careful about going too heavy on the black and white in a living space, especially one where you're going for a comfortable, livable feel.
It's giving very much editorial spread, which is stunning in photos, but I'm just trying to imagine myself actually living there, and I'm suddenly craving a little warmth, a little color, maybe something to break up all that black and white.
Right, and the analysis actually touches on that as well. They suggest a couple of things to warm it up, like incorporating some brass accents, maybe in the picture frames or the lighting fixtures, or even just bringing in a side table in a natural wood tone.
Ooh, I love that idea. And the analysis specifically mentioned brass, right?
They did. And I think it's a smart move because it adds just that subtle touch of warmth and another layer of visual interest without disrupting the whole monochrome aesthetic.
Okay, so we've established we need to bring in some warmer tones, but can we address that rug? Because bold choice, for sure, but I'm kind of getting optical illusion vibes from it, and not in a good way. I feel like I would trip over that pattern just looking at it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It definitely makes a statement, and a high contrast definitely fits the overall aesthetic. But it might be a bit much, especially with those clean lines they've got going on in the furniture and the architecture.
Exactly. And the analysis suggested going for a more toned down pattern, or even a solid rug, but with a lot of texture.
I think that's a great suggestion. Something to ground the space a little bit, Let those other elements, like the furniture and the contrast between the modern and the classic elements, really be the star of the show.
Okay, now I'm picturing something all plush and cozy underfoot. Maybe a chunky wool rug or something. But shifting gears a bit, we've talked about the floor, let's go up. What about that artwork? It's big, it's in those more muted tones, which, okay, fits the vibe. But, I don't know, does it feel a little safe, like it's lacking that wow factor?
It's an interesting point, and you're right. The artwork itself isn't bad at all. It's just, are we maximizing the potential here? And that's where the analysis gets really interesting because they challenge us to think about scale. So instead of that one large piece, what if we had a gallery wall, a curated collection of smaller prints? Or we could go in the complete opposite direction, one giant statement piece that really commands attention.
Ooh, see, now those ideas I like. Either one of those could totally change the whole feeling of the room. See, now you're speaking my language. Gallery walls, statement pieces, I'm here for it. But, it makes me think about something else the analysis brought up. We're talking about all this chic furniture, all these bold design choices. But where does comfort fit into all of this? Like, it's one thing to look at a picture. It's another to actually live in the space.
Right. You could have the most Instagrammable living room in the world, but if you can't relax and unwind there at the end of a long day, what's the point? And the analysis makes a good point about making sure even these more minimalist pieces are still inviting,
Totally. And I feel like nothing says relax and unwind quite like plants. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm a little biased.
A little bit.
Okay, very biased.
Yes.
I'm a plant lady, I admit it. But I just feel like a little greenery can completely transform a space.
Oh, 100%. And the analysis actually called out the lack of any real organic elements in this design. And it's such a good point because when you think about it, those natural materials, wood, stone, even just a few plants, they bring in this warmth, this life that you don't get from, just perfectly polished surfaces, especially in a space like this one, which is so clearly, designed.
It's like that breath of fresh air, literally. Okay, so we've tackled the rug, we've added some greenery, but can we talk about the lighting situation? Because right now, we've got the one very sleek, very cool floor lamp.
Which, again, looks great in photos.
Right, but in terms of setting a cozy vibe...
It's giving very much art gallery, not movie night.
Exactly.
And this is where a good layered lighting plan can make all the difference.
The analysis called this out specifically too, didn't they?
They did. And it's something we talk about a lot because it really is that important. You've got to have your ambient lighting, your accent lighting, maybe even some task lighting, depending on how you're actually using the space. And what they didn't mention is if this room even has a fireplace, because, with a classic space like that.
It has to.
Right. And that completely changes the game. But even with a fireplace, you're still going to want those other layers.
Okay, so walk me through it. What kind of lighting are we picturing in this monochrome minimalist dream of a living room? Give me all the details.
Okay, so I'm thinking we definitely need some sconces, flanking that fireplace, casting a nice warm glow. And then, because we love a good statement piece, maybe a chandelier, something with clean lines but still dramatic, to add a little bit of ooh.
A little bit.
And then, of course, we can't forget table lamps, dotted around the room, maybe on a side table or a console table with those nice warm bulbs, just to create those little pools of light in the evenings.
See, you get me. Chandeliers, table lamps, sconces, maybe some twinkle lights while we're at it. Why not?
Right. Go big or go home.
But really, it's amazing how we can take one room, break it down, and find all these little tweaks and changes that completely change the feel. And I think this deep dive with this monochrome minimalist, classic modern mashup of a living room has been such a great example of how important those little details are. What's your big takeaway? If you had to pick one thing that really stood out to you in this analysis, what would it be?
It's interesting to me. I think it's how this whole design goes beyond just like what looks good on the surface. It's about understanding the why behind each choice, like why monochrome, because it creates this feeling of timeless elegance, right? Why those natural elements? Because even in this super designed space, they bring in that warmth and that touch of the outdoors that every room needs. And layered lighting, well, we just talked about how that can completely transform how you experience a space. It's like every decision has a purpose. It's intentional. And I think that's something we can all take away from this, no matter what our own personal style is.
I love that because at the end of the day, it's not about following trends or copying someone else's style. It's about figuring out what makes you feel good in a space. And this analysis really gave us a masterclass in how to do that. But, our listener, they're probably out there, phone in hand, taking notes, getting inspired. So as they're about to embark on their own design journeys, what's the one piece of advice, the golden rule, that you would give them?
Honestly, don't overthink it. You don't need to be a professional designer to create a space that you love. You already have everything you need, your own instincts, your personal style. And now you've got a few more design principles under your belt thanks to this deep dive. So go out there, experiment, have fun with it. If it makes you happy, it's a good design.
That is such good advice. So go forth and create spaces that are as beautiful and as unique as you are. And hey, if you try out any of the tips and tricks we talked about, send us pictures. Tag us on your social media. We want to see those monochrome masterpieces and those plant-filled oases. Until next time, happy decorating.